What is up, folks? Made it. It's been a crazy evening already. Just getting started. See who's all on here. Man, that was like a wham, bam, get it done. So I was going to do the stream at 7:30 like normal. Then I realized that my wife had a hair appointment after work. And she wasn't going to be home till a little after 7. Then it was 7:30 and she still wasn't home. And she just got home. Took the laptop, bring it down here, got everything set up, and we are rolling. Waiting for Ron to get on here. I just sent him a text letting him know that we're rolling. And we got a good show this evening. Ron's going to be here, of course. And he's been catching some fish. So I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say about it. And then we got Jack Uxa, and I'm going to ask him how to say his last name because I'm not 100% sure how to say it. But he is a guide at Lake of the Ozarks, Jack's Guide Service. Just sent him a text, and he said he smashed them today. He's just getting back from a guide trip. And then we got Beffa coming in after that, and he's going to talk about the Bass Nation Regional on Milford Lake. So that's going to be exciting. And he's got something else to talk to you guys about. It's a benefit tournament, and we were talking earlier, and there's actually a pretty good raffle that's going to be happening. I don't want to say too much about it because I don't know exactly any of the details, but it's something you guys would definitely be interested in. So we got DJ on here. What's up, DJ? Tom, what's up, bro? We Need Edge Fishing. What's up, my man? Gary Maynor. Small Water Charters. Small Water Charters. What night are you doing your streams on? I've been missing them, and I apologize. I can't remember what night it is. I've been so busy lately. It's I don't know. It's just one thing after another. But I do like to carve out a little bit of time to check out other people's stuff. Got Bass RXs in here. Auto Tree. What's up, Doug? Doug is the Wapapello Lake reports guy, and I actually talked to him earlier. He gave me a pretty good detailed report. We got Billy in here. What's up, Billy? Good to see you on here. So Small Water Charter says we do it on Friday nights at 8 Eastern. Okay, cool. Jay Beffa says the announcement is huge. It's going to be huge. What's up, B? Nick here. Looks like a good discussion on the way. Yes, sir. We're going to be touching on some local fishing reports and stuff. And we're going to dive into a Carolina rig if we get time. We kind of started to talk about it last week, but we had 3 guests on here plus Ron. Well, Ron's the show. It's me and Ron, or it's Ron and I. Got to say that right. It's Ron and I. So, but anyway, we had 3 guests last week, and it just kind of got just too much going on. We didn't have much time to like freestyle. So there's Ron in the queue down here. Let's go ahead and pull Ron in here. And what's up, Mr. DaRosa?
What's going on, dude? Sorry,
No,
took me a
not
minute. My Claire's on the other computer, and so I set myself up back here in the back room.
Oh, excellent.
Yep.
I'm going to turn your volume up just a little bit here. Okay, cool. I was just kind of giving a shout out to everybody. We got Dave's on here. Dave caught some good fish today. Where'd you go at, Dave? I thought you said you went to Pickneyville. Let's see. We got Shane Fisher. Got anything on Clearwater? Yes, I do. I'll get to that here shortly. Okay. What's up, Rich? What's up, Rich? Yeah, Morgan Taylor burned us, dude. It's all your fault. Talking fantasy fishing.
I think I just saw a little bit of the results. I think he just had 1 today, didn't he?
Yeah, I just had a feeling that being a flipping deal and a pitching deal and a grinder, I thought he was going to do it. And
yeah,
the weights are really close anyway. So if somebody has a decent bag tomorrow, they can still get in the top 50. It's definitely not over.
Get a paycheck, get some points.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, Dave Holmes said that he went to Marion Reservoir again.
Is that? Can you still go there?
I thought it was David told me that it was supposed to close April 1st, but he said he went by there the other day, I think after work, and it was open. And so he said he fished there today. So apparently it's not. I mean, I know it was purchased, and I don't know exactly when it's going to close.
I was asked that I was at Grassy the other day, and I had a gentleman who had watched your video at the Marion City Reservoir. I forget his name. And he asked me, hey, I thought that place had sold. And I said, well, it has, but I don't know what the particulars are. And I guess they're still able to fish it. So
yeah, I had a guy commented on that video with Dave, and he was gonna go fish it, but he saw me talking about it or something, and he wasn't. Then he decided he wasn't gonna go, and I told him it closed April 1st because I didn't know. And then right after I left that comment, I texted Dave. I said, "Hey, dude, are you for sure that it's closed?" He's like, "Actually, I just went by there and it's still open, and I'm planning on going fishing like, in 2 days there." So
fish it while you can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a good lake.
It is.
Let's see here. So, have you been out on Egypt at all, or have you heard a report on Egypt?
No, thank goodness I have not been on Egypt for a couple of days. I needed a break from Egypt. They're biting. Yeah, it's a fair number of fish have moved up, and it's just like a lot of places. The weed clumps are, since you can't fish the docks, obviously, the weed clumps. Some guys are even punching the weed clumps. I think you and I talked about that. When I say weed clumps, I'm talking about the water willow. And so, I mean, it's happening. You just got to find a place that hasn't been beat to death, really, is the challenge. On the weekdays, that's not too bad. On the weekends, it's a little tougher. But fortunately, I've got a tournament coming up this coming weekend on Little Grassy. So last several trips, I've been going over to Little Grassy, and well, it's been really nice. It's 4 or 5 trucks in the parking lot, and you might see one boat, and wherever you decide to go fishing, there's no boat there. So it's been a welcome little bit of a change, a little change of pace, and catching a few fish. So
yeah, and if you need to go to the bathroom, you can just go to the bathroom wherever you want. You don't have to worry about houses.
You don't have to worry about a homeowner. Yeah, not that I do anyway.
Right. Yeah. So what's the Grassy look like right now? Is it high, low? Is it water clear?
Yeah, it's Grassy is right at the spillway, and Egypt is the same way. I've driven over the spillway the last few days, so Egypt is right at the spillway. Grassy's right at the spillway. Actually drove past Devil's Kitchen. It was basically right at the spillway. So all the rain that we've had is all kind of settled out. We got a little rain last night, but it didn't seem to change the lake at all. The watercolor in Grassy is, for those who don't know, Grassy is a pretty clear lake. Front 2/3 of the lake is not as clear as it will be in the summer, but it's not dirty. It's got a nice just a good color to it. Maybe, I don't know, 3-foot visibility, something like that, maybe a little more. And then if you go down the lake splits to the left and to the right, to the east and west. And those creeks have color in them, but they're not muddy at all. So the lake in general has really good color. It's very fishable. The whole lake is very fishable. Main lake water temperature up front is 58 to 60 in the morning. So, and that sounds like it's about like that everywhere. Then you can get in a little pocket somewhere, and it can be in the low 60s in a little pocket, but I would say 59 to 60 is probably where the lake's at. Still haven't caught a fish with a bloody tail or anything like that. And I've been fortunate. I've got lucky in the last week. I've caught a couple really nice fish that I would not have caught at Egypt. They just, I had one today that was on the handheld was 611. And I kind of wish I didn't catch that one today. And I was doing a good job of staying out of some areas, but it bit, and I'm not complaining, and got it in the boat and got a nice picture. So,
can I show that picture?
We'll see what happens there. It looks like, huh?
Can I show that picture?
Yeah, I sent you one, I think.
I know I can.
Yeah, you show it. Just don't show the bait.
I won't.
Yeah,
that's a beast.
And that's grass. The fish at Grassy are really pretty. And
the other picture is better, but I can't show it to you.
Yeah. But that's pretty typical of a nice fish at Grassy. And it was cool. I caught fish. I didn't have to worry about anyone watching me catch it, or just lake was just really relaxed. And I really enjoyed it over there. So
what's the grass? How's the grass looking over there?
The grass looks good. There's plenty. There's a good mixture of course, it's got water willow like all of our lakes. That's the stalky stuff that's emergent along the banks of all of our lakes. And then it's got, now I'm not an expert. It looks like to me a mix of milfoil and coontail. There's two different types of, I'll just say two different types of coontail. So I think that some of that's milfoil. But Grassy's got good weed cover for the fish, kind of spread throughout the lake in different areas. And it's got what's nice about Grassy, it has some deep weeds. I've fished some weeds that are as deep as 13 or 14 feet. You know, you can see them on your graph on the points, and there's some fish out there. Grassy, the challenge is Grassy has a lot of small fish in it right now. Kind of going through a little bit of a cycle, I think. So you fight a lot of those 10 to 14 inchers. And when I say 10 to 14, more of them are closer to 10 than closer to 14. But you can catch plenty of them. And so it's just cycling through your areas and trying to find out what places where the better fish have moved up. And Grassy's acting like Grassy should. And the one thing I have noticed that's different, and I don't know if this is from it being cold and warming up really fast, the creeks have a big algae bloom back in the backs of the creeks. And the fish could care less, but it's a pain to fish in. You know how it globs on your lure. I don't care what you throw other than a frog. It's just that green, slimy, filamentous algae. And that usually goes away as the year progresses, but there's a bunch of it in the backs of the creeks right now. So that's really about the only oddball thing I've noticed with Grassy.
Yeah, man, that stuff drives me crazy. It's hard to fish anything through it. Once it gets, I don't want to say once it gets gone, but once it goes away and the grass gets a little more crisp, it's so much easier to pop and rip stuff through there. But right now, if you even touch one of those stalks, it gets in your chatterbait or whatever.
It doesn't matter any bait basically, but it's not so bad. It's not so bad that you can't fish the lake. I mean, it's not that's just what I've noticed in the creeks. So
it's kind of like there's techniques that part of the technique is just dealing with that stuff. Like punching. Yeah. If you punch a lot of grass, you just got to deal with pulling grass off your bait every couple flips. That's just part of it. And that's one of the reasons why not as many people do it, because it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's a little bit of extra effort, which to somebody that likes to punch is good, because it keeps everybody from doing it, because it's a little more work. Most people will sit out the grass.
Yeah. Have you noticed anytime you're fishing, and if you're in a good groove, no matter what you're doing, you know, little things like that you don't even think about or they don't bother you. But if you're in a bad groove, no matter what you're doing, deep, shallow, whatever, all that stuff drives you crazy. You know, that's all you're focused on. And today I had a good day. Today everything was, I don't know how to explain it, but when you have a good day on the water, it's, I don't know, you just feel like you're making the right decisions and you're confident in what you're doing. And so I think part of that for me was being able to get on the lake and just being away from the crowd and relaxing. And so the last few days have been really therapeutic. It's Southern Illinois has a wonderful resource in these little lakes, Cedar and Grassy, and Devil's Kitchen is, I mean, if you're there, I mean, you're by yourself most days. So it's, I'm glad I got the John boat wet here lately.
You know, Devil's Kitchen, you're right. It's kind of out there, and that's good and bad. The bad side of that would be if you get hung up on one of those pieces of standing timber out there and 65 foot of water.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's a Sasquatch that lives in the woods around Devil's Kitchen. It's just got that feel to it. But
it could be.
It's peaceful. It's very peaceful out there.
Yeah, it is. And I'll tell you what, here's the other thing. You know, and here, look at my shirt, Free the Fighter, right? Catch and release. It's all ingrained in our brain. But if anyone wants to have a fish fry, I would highly encourage them to go to Devil's Kitchen and keep some of those little bass. They're encouraging people to take them out of there. I don't think it would be a bad thing on Grassy. Grassy has I think it's 10 to 12 you can keep. DK, unless they've changed it this year, there is no length limit. So you can go there and keep 6 of whatever size bass you want, you know, the small ones. And it needs it. Every time I go there, I try to make myself take a few out. I can't do it. You know, one guy can't do enough to help the lake, but I try to do my part. Hell, I was getting my refuge sticker a couple of years ago, and the lady told me, she was talking about Devil's Kitchen, and I don't know what we started talking about, but I had mentioned I was going to Devil's Kitchen. He said, "Well, if you don't keep them, throw them up on the bank." They wanted them out of there. Yeah, she told me throw the little ones on the bank is what she told me.
Jeez, yep, that place has been like that forever. Yeah, I'd rather eat them too. Let me get a couple of these comments real quick. Smallwater Charter says they're smashing the flukes as well as the bruiser bait big jerk. White has been the ticket. Sounds like Egypt. White's the deal. And he's got a code. You know, if you guys are interested in some bruiser baits or bass addiction gear, there's his code. You can check that out. And, you know, while we're talking about that, just want to remind you guys, Cumberland Pro, you know, I'm working with Cumberland Pro, and they got some pretty cool products that they've just came out with. And one of them, it's a little bit early for that. And I'll just touch on this real quick. But this is their Magnum shaky head. And I think this is a really, really cool head design. It's a little bit different than anything else on the market. So it's got the traditional flat top on there, you know, so it's going to stand up. Let's see if I can do this. It's a stand-up head, right?
Okay.
And it's got a 7/0 hook in there, 7/0 round bend hook. So it's made to pair up with, you know, your big like Magnum shaky head worms, whatever they are. And even a rage crawl will go on there really nicely. But the hook's awesome. The head's really nice. It's got a recessed line tie. But the thing that is really different is this hitchhiker screw lock. And I think this is a pretty unique deal. And me personally, it's cool, okay? Because the problem that I have, and some of it's in my head, but I do feel like it has cost me some fish before, is when you have a fixed screw lock, okay? So that fixed screw lock almost acts like a weed guard. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, if you look at that now, that's your gap, okay? If this is fixed, now there's your gap. See, so it goes from there to there. So that's kind of like a weed guard. I usually use the one that has a little keeper down here on the shank. But this folds out of the way. It bends out of the way. So when the fish grabs it, it collapses. It's not acting like a little mini weed guard or whatever. But really cool product. And they sell these in a 3-pack. You can get them at Omnia Fishing. And I believe I want to say they're $5.99. So $2 a head is pretty reasonable. They've got 3 different sizes. They've got a 3/8, a half, and a 3/4. And they've got black and green pumpkin. Just a pretty cool product. Post spawn is, I mean, you could probably fish a big shaky head right now, but traditionally that post spawn, when those fish spawn and they start moving out to the deeper areas, the deep points and the wood and stuff, that's when I'll be throwing this sucker around. And a beaver is another thing you can put on this big shaky head that I kind of discovered that a couple of years ago. Had some pretty good tournaments on Kentucky Lake with a sweet beaver. So just wanted to throw, and they got a lot of good jigs too, man. If you guys are looking,
the other thing I like about that free screw lock is on those fixed ones, a lot of times it makes it hard to get the plastic lined up right with the hook. You know, I get kind of particular with the way I want that worm or craw or whatever I'm using on there to look right. And with that fixed lock, sometimes it's hard to get it sitting on there the way you like it. In that free swinging one, you can get that plastic straight every time.
Yeah, you can hold it just like this and throw it up on there. But it's pretty cool. Yeah. It's just something a little bit different. And, you know, I just thought I'd show that to you guys because we'll, you know, right now we're still buying a lot of spring stuff, but pretty soon we're going to be buying some post spawn stuff. And this is something that you might want to check out. So Cumberland Pro, Magnum Shaky Head, Omnia Fishing, check them out. And we got Jack. Jack's down there in the queue. I saw him sneak in here, and he just sent me a text. He said he had a good day out there. So we're going to go ahead and pull Jack in here, and then I'll get on your questions here after we talk to Jack. So let me get him in here real quick. What's up, Jack?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Nothing, man. We're just chilling, talking fishing. How do you say your last name?
Uxa.
Uxa. Okay. I've been saying Uxa or Uxa. I wasn't 100% sure on how to say that. So,
hey, I've been listening to you for a couple minutes here, and apparently I need to be listening to you guys a lot more. How long have you been doing this?
We've been doing the live stream for probably about 6 weeks as far as the Thursday night live stream. And then we do a Monday night live stream. And we've been doing that for about a year. It's not me and Ron, it's me and somebody else. But so I got kind of 2 live streams going right now.
Sounds like you're giving out some good information.
Yeah, we're trying to. It's kind of cool. Me and Ron actually came up with this concept to get on here Thursday nights, and Ron's fishing throughout the week. I'm fishing throughout the week, and we kind of collab and share the fishing reports. And then anybody in our area that has been out on the water and has a fishing report, I encourage them to send it to me. That way I can write them down and share them with everybody else. And it's kind of a community of fishing reports. So just kind of a wild idea we came up with.
Yeah, it sounds like it's doing good. I mean, I hope you guys smashed them today because it was a good day today. Yesterday was good, but today was better.
So tell us about it. What's going on down there?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it was anything crazy. I mean, nothing stellar. I mean, all we were doing was throwing spinner baits for the most part, and they were just biting. I mean,
that easy.
Were they?
It's nothing crazy.
Fish?
What's that?
Were they wind activated fish?
Yeah, I would say so. The wind was definitely helping. Just throwing E-factor spinner bait and primarily along shallow brush. But I mean, honestly, we caught a lot of them off rock too. I mean, I assume a lot of your guys' listeners are familiar with Lake of the Ozarks a little bit, and we were fishing just kind of like a middle part we put in at Tantera, and you know, it wasn't anything crazy. The lake's just about a foot and a half low or so. We've got 30,000, I think it's 36,000 cubic feet a second going through the dam right now. And, you know, fish are just in staging areas outside of the spawning pockets. It's all pretty much the standard stuff that you know, that a lot of the bass geeks have, known about forever. But for whatever reason, sometimes it works and sometimes it works a whole lot better than other times.
Man, I know it's good when those days come together and the fish are where they're supposed to be.
Exactly. I mean, there's been a lot of days. I mean, a couple times here recently where the water's been pretty dirty for the last few weeks here. And, you normally think of, hey, springtime, they want to be on the bank. When the water's dirty, they want to be on the bank, but they're not. They're back out here, and it's frustrating and it's not right. And it's because of whatever reasons here or there, but maybe they're starting to get to where they're supposed to be now, because they were there today and we had an awesome day.
Yeah. So what's the water?
I noticed here.
Go ahead, Ron.
I'm sorry. I noticed yesterday, I was anticipating it to be a really good day yesterday, but the fish weren't quite following the plan. And today it seemed like they were following the plan a little better. I don't know what the difference was.
It's we study this stuff and we study the weather. I mean, a lot of us fishermen, gosh, we watch the weather like it's religion, and we study the bass obviously too, and we still don't have it down 100%. We still, we're still wrong a lot, but there's days where it comes together and all of a sudden they bite just fine. I mean, the water level has actually been dropping here the last couple of days, which is weird. You're like, well, why is it dropping? I'm sitting in my boat right now and my boat's soaked. I've got dry stuff out. I'm wet. I mean, you know how it is when your boat's wet in the last couple of days, but and then for the lake to be falling, which is even weirder, but we've got some dams here and they don't want it to flood or anything like that. So they're going to drop it down a little bit in anticipation of the rain. And so that's part of the equation, I guess. It sucked them out of the back areas. I was catching some fish like all the way in the back. Well, the fish I caught today were just not quite all the way in the back. They're more like halfway back in the coves.
So what's the water look like? Is it typical 2-foot visibility, 3-foot visibility, or?
No, it's much dirtier than that. It's a few inches, it's probably about 6 inches.
Wow.
So it's not bad, I mean, man, this time of year, I like to have a little color in the water, because ideally I like the fish to be on the banks and relatively shallow. I mean, they should be moving up to spawn here, sometime in the next, I look for some bass to get on some beds in the next 2 weeks. So. Yeah,
I was out on a local lake here. I live in Cape Girardeau, and I fish in Southern Illinois a lot. I mean, I head down to Lake of the Ozarks quite a bit too, but Southern Illinois is where I typically go on the weekdays. And, I saw like 64-degree water temps today, so that's right there. I mean, we're just waiting on that full moon, I guess.
Yeah. Yesterday, well, no, not yesterday. I'm sorry. 2 days ago, I saw 60-degree water temperatures up here, and we're not that much further north than you, but it was a really warm day, and that particular day was a crappie trip, and we caught crappies within inches of water, and some of the crappies were turning that black color that the males change colors when the spawn starts, and they were definitely changing colors. So that's another sign that spring is here.
Yeah, I was getting I was throwing a swim jig today. I was fishing in a lake that has grass, and those crappie were up super shallow, and they were hitting that swim jig. I was just setting. I was missing. I missed like 5 or 6 fish, and I finally figured out after I hooked one that it was a crappie, and they're jumping up there and pecking on that swim jig. It's exciting.
Yeah, you're right. We had some of that happen today too. And at one point, I grabbed my little crappie rod and I threw in there and I made 3 pitches and caught crappie on all 3 casts. And then I put it away because I had a bass customer with me today, but he's going to be fishing the next few days with, by himself or with his family. And he's got some little kids. So they're going to be doing some crappie fishing, I imagine, because they were just biting so good. Right? Really. I mean, and then me and him went back to bass fishing.
So how long have you been guiding?
I started guiding in 2003.
Okay.
So it's a long time. And I started working in the fishing business in 97. So I'm 40 now, and I've spent, basically a long time since 97 working in the fishing business. So.
Well, that's great. That's that's a great job. Anytime you can do something in the field that you are passionate about, that's a win-win situation. So that's cool.
It's great when they bite, like today. That was great. But sometimes they don't bite, and then it's a real challenge. But yeah, today was one of those good days when we had some rain, but it was real light rain. It wasn't like the storms like we had yesterday. And yeah, today was a great day. It was my customer, he was from Nebraska, and he caught 2 5-pounders, and it was the first day he's fished all year. And I don't know, but wow. I think this is probably those might be the biggest bass he's ever caught. But I didn't ask him, but
you spoiled him, man. You spoiled him.
Well, it's just Lake of the Ozarks like that. We've got some big bass over here, and we have so many tournaments it can be hard to catch them. But man, we've got some big ones in this lake, and you see the big 20-pound sacks winning here on a pretty regular basis. But gosh, it doesn't mean it's easy. You guys have fished here. Sometimes it's easy. Not too often though. Most of the time it's a grind.
Mm-hmm. Did you see the 9.26 that was caught in the Anglers in Action over the weekend?
I saw that. That was
holy cow.
That was a monster.
I know, man. So what are some of the bigger bass that's been caught out of your boat?
I had a customer catch a 10-pound and 11-ounce bass.
Gee,
so wow. That was the biggest bass I've ever seen in my life.
How recently was that?
Oh gosh, it was I don't know, it was like 2016. Okay. It was March 15th. I do remember the date. I don't remember the year, but it was about 5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
It'll pop up on my Facebook. Oh my gosh. It was huge. I've caught some big bass. I caught a 10-pounder out of a farm pond one time. And that's cool, but it's a farm pond,
Right.
I had a rhythm come out made, and I'm glad I did, because it was only double-digit bass I've ever caught, and I don't travel a whole lot, so I don't go down to Florida, and I don't go to Texas, and these areas where there's just a lot more big bass, and that Florida strain really makes a big difference down there. But for Missouri to produce a 10-pound bass, it just doesn't happen very often. Even where you guys are at, you guys are a little bit further south, but it just doesn't happen very much. You got to.
Yeah, I've never caught a 10.
Yeah. I've only caught one in my life, and I don't know how many days I've fished out of the last 20 years, but it's been a lot of days.
Yeah.
And a lot of guide trips, and that's only happened one time on a guide trip. But man, that was a cool day. We were killing them that day. It was one of these years where it was the springtime deal, and we had a lot of dirty water. And so nobody was really catching much. And then, about 5 days prior to that, or maybe 10 days prior to that, we had just a big warm up, and so we had a really cold, kind of muddy water February, and just nothing was being caught. And then we had this giant warm up with that dirty water. It just got all the fish moving shallow. And we had a sunny day, and we caught some fish, caught some really nice, 3 and 4 pounders earlier that day. And then the guy catches that 10-11, and man, that was a hog. We put it in the live well, and I sat down, and I just couldn't really do anything. And I remember the man that caught it, he wasn't really much of a fisherman, but his son was a fisherman, and me and him just sat there like right here in my boat, and like, what did we just see? How was it possible? And the dad just like went back to fishing. He's just like, oh, it's cool, we caught a good fish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you just put a 10-pounder in the live well, man. This is not normal.
Yeah, we need a moment of silence here or something. Jeez.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
So
pretty
was that
cool.
what was
That's pretty
the
cool.
on that fish? How were you guys fishing and what was that like? Was it a long drawn out fight or did it just happen and it was over really quick?
It really wasn't anything substantially different. We were throwing the same spinnerbait today. A lot of guys around here throw them. It's I forget what they call them. It used to be made by chompers, and I know this is a ratty one here. It used to be made by chompers, and then Casey Scanlon somehow got the mold and started making it with his own company. It's just a chartreuse and white 1/2-ounce spinnerbait. The blades are kind of unique to where they're half painted and they're half not painted, and I believe it's called Ozark Flash. And they're still being made under Casey Scanlon's business, his tackle company now, and it's owned by Tackle HD, which is a Missouri company, by the way. And it's just great. I mean, I threw it back then. We were throwing it today. I mean, it's a good one. We caught a lot of fish on E-Factor spinnerbaits today too. You know, it just in the spring of the year, they like to eat a big meal.
Mm-hmm. Are those blades?
Are you seeing a lot of gizzard shad?
Oh yeah, we've got a ton of gizzard shad in this lake. I mean, it's everywhere you look. I've got that Garmin Live Scope, and I mean, it's 99% of the time you look down on your screen, you're seeing a lot of gizzard shad.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
So the ice didn't kill all the gizzard shad in the lake.
No, it didn't. No, I was hoping it was going to make them a little bit more hungry, but I don't know if that happened or not. There's tons of them in there. There's just tons of them. It's a very, very fertile lake, and there's something about the dirty water that we're having right now that just kind of makes them more active. You know, they're not bunched up in groups. You don't see them in big schools like you usually would, but you do see them just all scattered out. They kind of look like crappie sometimes.
Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, we were down there for I fished the Toyota series a couple weeks ago down there, and you know, there was a lot of gizzard shad just floating around everywhere. It was pretty crazy. You know, they would.
That was a tough event there. That was that was a tough event. That was a real grinder, and there was a lot of dying shad, and we just came out of if you fish the tournament, you remember all the ice on the lake at times too.
Yep, every morning.
Yeah, there was times where I'd pull into a spot and I'd literally have to break ice with my boat and do some donuts in the tournament, and then I'd come back and fish it. Sometimes an hour later, and then there'd be somebody else on my spot. I'm like, oh, I broke that up. I should be able to fish there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was not just in the morning. I mean, it was all the way till like noon.
I know. We were staying on the 26 mile and we were running over to PB2 every day for the tournament. And that first morning, we got out of our little cove there. Where there's a little island there at the 26 mile. It used to be, it's a Jimmy Buffett's place. I think Land Shark's right in that area or something. We're back in that cove. So when we came out of that cove, it was ice for basically to the Osage and the Glaze. And we just got up on pad about 40 miles an hour and just ran through that ice for probably 8 miles or something. It was wild. It's a great way to start your morning out.
Oh my God. It's amazing that anybody was able to catch any fish at all. Really.
Yeah. 34 to 36 degree water temps. It was crazy.
Yeah. I saw your video on YouTube, man.
Of the ice, going through the ice, or
yeah.
It was crazy. It was I'd never experienced it. What's funny is my buddy Mike, who was in the video, he didn't think he had any damage to his boat from that run. Well, on the way home, once he got his boat up on the trailer, he started looking at his keel guard there, and it was completely pulled back. but it wasn't from running forward. It was from a couple days before the tournament. He had pulled in to the slip nose forward, and the lake froze behind the slip. The whole area kind of froze in. So he backed out, and he thinks when he was backing out that the ice grabbed the kill guard or whatever, and peeled it forward. So he lost about, I don't know, like 4 or 5 feet of that rubber protected thing down there on the bottom of his boat. But other than that, he said there wasn't any, damage to the gel coat or anything. But it sounded horrible running across that ice. Just
I can imagine.
Yeah, pretty fortunate.
Well, I mean, it's something that luckily we don't have to deal with a whole lot of here in Missouri. And God, I remember trying to run some guide trips right prior to that too, and that was a real challenge. that was even more difficult than fishing that tournament. I was running all over the place just trying to find open water. I was going down below Bagnell Dam. I was going up the rivers. And luckily, I've got 2 boats from my guide service. I've got my bass boat, a 21-foot Nitros Z21. That's kind of my nice boat. And then I've got a beater boat, which is just a 18-foot aluminum boat with a jet prop to it, so I could go anywhere in shallow water. And that's what we were doing for my guide trips right prior to that tournament. That was a challenge.
Yeah, that's the problem we were finding is on that tournament, you would run, and then you'd get to a main lake point and want to fish the cove, and you could only go back in the cove about 10 yards, 20 yards, and the whole back of it was completely frozen until about noon. So it was actually, I mean, it made the lake fish really, really small, put it that way.
Oh, I fished that tournament, and I remember there was one bank in particular that me and 2 other boats were literally, I mean, not fighting over, but you couldn't really go up or down because they were there. You could only cast this way. And it's just like there was me and 2 other boats, and there was just no room for anybody else. And everybody's just sat there on spot lock, and we tried to fish.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you can do, really. We got a few questions on here for you real quick, and then we'll let you go. Kenneth Dennis wants to know, how is the North Shore area fishing, and how is the wigglewort bite?
The wigglewort bite and crankbait bite in general is definitely there right now. Today I was catching them more on a spinnerbait, but gosh, I'd say overall I've caught more fish on a crankbait this spring than any other spring before. It's for whatever reason they've been liking the crankbaits this year. And the North Shore is doing okay. Had a guide trip down there a few days ago. We caught a couple decent ones. It was fine. It wasn't awesome. I think there's some other areas that are doing a little bit better. But I fish a lot of that North Shore in general. I love it down there. I mean, it's one of my key areas. Primarily in the summertime and in the wintertime. Those are the 2 times where the North Shore really shines the best. And right now, it's okay. I've got a guide trip coming up there in a couple days, so I mean, we'll do it. There's some really big crappie biting down there right now, so that's one positive. But I tell you what, that's where we were finding some of those bass, and they were suspended out, and I didn't like that. Even though we were catching them, and there were some decent fish, there were some 3-pounders, but I didn't like where they were positioned. They were about 10 feet down, 12 feet down, over 25 feet of water in the muddy water. So, I'd rather go to an area that's got some fish a little bit more relating to the bank when it's dirty like this.
So you said the North Shore. Where exactly is that?
That is from the 0 mile marker right at Bagnell Dam all the way up to the mouth of the Gravois Arm, which is the 6 mile marker.
Okay, good deal. I've heard that term mentioned a bunch, and obviously I don't get down there enough to know what that is, so appreciate that. Chris says, when do the Bass and Bob monthly group reports start back up?
Oh, I don't know. Whenever Bob tells us to show up. The thing is, we're all busy. And my father-in-law passed away from COVID, and I don't know. I mean, we're going to start it up here soon enough. I'm surprised we haven't done it by now, actually. I think the only thing is I think we've been busy. You know, I mean, I'm really busy running my guide service. I mean, I run 7 to 9 guide trips a week pretty much from now until October. You know, Jim Dill, he's got a full-time job. Denise Dill, she's got a full-time job. They both guide on the side. Wayne Fitzpatrick, you know, he sold his business off, so he's not as busy as he used to be. But, you know, I mean, we're just, you know, as far as me and Jim go, you know, we don't get paid a dime for that stuff. We just do it because we like to help out Bob, and we're friends with Bob, and yeah, that's why I do it, at least, because I like to help him out.
Yeah, Bob's a good dude, man. He's always got the donuts and the coffee for the fishermen at the tournaments in the morning. It's nice.
Yeah, he texted me. I was on some group text earlier today. They texted me about 19 times when I was on my guide trip. And they were game planning all about the Missouri Invitational tournament next November. And they're getting all excited about that already.
Yeah. Got to start planning early.
Well, you know, that's one of those, it's just a unique tournament format. And I don't know, it's just so different and they like it. You know, Bob's ate up with fishing just like a lot of us are. And, you know, he grew up, you know, working in the software business for the last however many years, and then sold that off. And he's just gone head on into this fishing world, and he's just ate up with it as much as you can be. And I'm sure he was fishing today too. I would imagine he was, and hopefully he had a good day. He'll have a good report for all of his Bass and Bob members out there. I hope he did, at least.
Bill wants to know, when you are guiding more than one person, let's see, I think this is when you guide more than one person, should the guide fish? Do you fish while you're guiding, or?
I do. It just depends on the situation. Depends how easy the bite is, you know. If we got them, no, I don't fish at all. I mean, there's been lots of times where I don't fish at all, and I could kind of care less to, because I'm out there all the time. And like today, we had them figured out. The big ones, they were on shallow brush, so I never made a single cast at shallow brush, and that was all right with me, and it was all right with my customer back there, because every now and then he drew in a monster, and so it just depends. I mean, a lot of times you have to, because at least I could tell you on this lake, it's not an easy lake. You gotta figure them out every day. They change all the time, so. Yes and no. I mean, you got to do it when you got to find them, and you got to find them on pretty regular basis. It's different if you're like in like, say, Florida, where it's really easy, and like you're saltwater fishing or something like that, or we're doing something, you know, where the fish are just a lot more aggressive. But Lake of the Ozarks, it's a very humbling lake. It could turn some really good tournament fishermen to, you know, and they can leave here with zero fish sometimes. Yeah,
it's it can be feast or famine for sure. I mean, even the best guys down there struggle at times. I mean, you see a guy, you just assume they're going to come in with, you know, a top 20 finish, and they don't
all the time. Yeah.
Well, good deal. Well, Jack, I guess we'll let you go. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you for a guide trip, how can they get a hold of you?
I'm kind of glad this is wrapping up, because all of a sudden I can barely hear you now. But my phone number is area code 573-434-2570. And most of the time people just go to my website nowadays. It's fishinglake-of-the-ozarks.com. Once again, I'll say that again. It's fishinglake-of-the-ozarks.com.
Okay, great. Excellent. And I'll put the link to your guide service in the comments section. Basically, after this, I'll write all that up and put it down there so people can just get on there and get a hold of you. It sounds like you need more time on the water, since you've only got 7 or 9 trips a week.
Well, that's now that things are cracking, and it's man, I tell you what, ever since this COVID stuff has hit, it's been crazy.
Yeah. Record numbers of fishing license sales, record numbers of new people, and you know, new people need guides, experienced people need guides, but especially new people. So you're right where you need to be at for sure. So
yeah. Okay, well, guys, I appreciate it. And if anybody looking for a guide, just area code 573-434-2570.
all right, sounds good, Jack. Appreciate it, man.
All right, man.
All right, guys, thank you.
We
Have a good night.
appreciate you.
Bye.
All right, take care.
All right, good stuff, man. Good stuff. He is a
Yeah,
very
good guy.
reputable guide. Heard a lot of good stuff about the man, and he caught a 10-something pounder out of his boat. So doesn't get any better than that.
That's amazing.
Oh, no kidding. No kidding.
That's just that's pretty cool.
It's kind of like Crab Orchard that time when that 11-something was caught out of there. There's one swimming around in the lake somewhere, but is everything going to line up?
Talking about Devil's. Yeah, we were talking about Devil's Kitchen earlier, and that's a lake that I don't want to say often, but maybe once a year, you hear of a 10 being caught, and a lot of times that's out of Devil's Kitchen. The trout fed, and one day maybe I'll be the lucky guy that catches it. So far, not me.
Yeah, I know that tournament they used to have, the Little Egypt Bass Club used to have that 2-day tournament, and they may still, but it seems like
they do.
Okay, it seemed like every year somebody caught an 8-pounder or a 9-pounder or something.
Yeah,
that's
the first tournament I ever won. The first bigger tournament.
Oh, really?
I won that. I don't even remember. 1990, maybe 94. I don't remember what year I won it, but I had a 7. I had a 7-something the second day, and I wasn't close to big bass.
Jeez.
So yeah, it's an 8 or 9-pounder. We used to be really typical out there.
We got Bob on here. What's up, Bob, from Lake of the Ozarks? And I hope you enjoyed hearing Jack, one of your fellow native guys and local guys down there. We got Alan on here. I'm just gonna go through these comments real quick so we don't get too far behind. Okay, Gary agrees with the Sasquatch. It's cool. I'm glad I got a fellow Sasquatch fan on here. Catching Bass Guy 1960 says, and this is kind of referring to before Jack came on, you were talking about catching selective harvest on Devil's Kitchen, getting all those small fish out of there. So that's where that comment is coming from. And then Smallwater Charter says, feeding the Sasquatch with those fish on the bank. You know what? That's probably what's going on. That's why they want you to throw those fish on the bank. If you keep the wildlife happy, they don't attack the vehicles in the parking lot.
Yeah, there you go. They don't attack the boat, the fishermen.
You're not supposed to feed the animals, though.
I adjust this thing a little bit.
Scott James says, first bass tournament I fished ever on Lake Kincaid was this weekend. Do you have advice? I guess he's going to be fishing on Kincaid this weekend. Scott, good timing, man. I just got home from Kincaid. Got on the water about 10 and I fished till about 5. It's looking really good. The watercolor is perfect in my opinion. It's around 2 to 2.5 foot visibility in the marina in the main lake area around the islands and stuff. And as you get down towards the no wake zone, the Johnson Creek area, it's, I don't know, it's like a foot and a half or so, but it's not muddy. It's a good stain. It's a stain like me and Ron were talking about this. It's a stain that makes you feel like the fish will be shallow, but not negative, not muddy and chocolate milk. It looks really good. The only thing that kind of is kind of a bummer, and this is what Ron was talking about, that algae stuff that was going on a Little Grassy, that same kind of stuff's going on, or I don't know if it's the same stuff, but there's kind of algae on that milfoil. So anytime your bait touches that grass, it gets clumped up. It's kind of hard. It's hard to get it free of that grass. And I think there's going to be a bumper crop of grass this year at Kincaid. It just, there's a lot of grass. So plan on seeing a lot of grass, and the fish are up in the grass. Water temps were 58 in the marina, and I went all the way almost to the other boat ramp in the no wake, and I had 64 in the afternoon. That was probably about 4 o'clock. So
Hmm.
at 10 o'clock in the morning, it was 58 on one end of the lake. And then in the afternoon, it was 64. And it's about, I'd say it's just a hair high, you know, not anything crazy. What else can I add to that? I think there's some fish to be caught shallow for sure. I caught a couple pretty solid fish. Well, I only caught probably 6 fish. I think I put 6 or 7 in the boat maybe, and I had several bites, but every fish I caught was good. Everything was between 2.5 and I'm gonna say 4.5. I had a really good between 4 and 5 pounder hooked up on a Missile Baits D-bomb, and I had my chest cam on. I was shooting video. You guys will see the video next week, but I was doing the, you know, fighting it next to the boat, and I was just kind of checking it out, and la 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 la, and I was getting ready to pull it up, and it popped off. So, but I got a good look at it, and it was a good solid chunky fish, real healthy, real pretty, real fat, just a nice looking fish. And you know, they were all like that. I was throwing, some of the fish I caught were on a spinner bait. I was throwing that big Thunder Thumper spinner bait, which is the 1/2 ounce Cumberland Pro bullet head with the size 7 Colorado blade on there. Throwing it on like 20-pound test, and man, they were smoking it. They just bam. You know, like I said, I didn't get a lot of bites, but when they wanted it, they let you know. They hammered it, and I caught some fish on a swim jig. It was the same thing. I mean, that it's that bite where I was throwing it's a Cumberland Pro limit out compact swim jig, and you're just kind of reeling that. That's a weird. If you guys haven't fished a swim jig, it's kind of a weird bite anyway. Not a weird bite. It's a bait. You don't feel it a lot. It's not like a chatterbait or a spinner bait where you can really feel it thumping. It feels like you're just reeling in a plastic worm, you know? So you don't get that. You don't feel the blade stop like a bladed jig or a spinner bait. It's a different kind of bite. It just kind of gets light. And that's what was happening. You know, that's my favorite kind of bite. It just disappears. It's like somebody cut your line and then you reel down and set, and they're just strong right now. You know, the water's upper 50s, low 60s. That's that water temperature where they're starting to get spicy. You know, they'll make those long runs and they start digging and stuff. But yeah, man, if I had a tournament this weekend, this is just me talking, you know, just to give you an idea, but moving baits and just pitching any kind of wood. Wood is key right now. The bites that I got when I was pitching and flipping were around wood. I think if you find some rock and wood and grass mixed together, that's a pretty good. If you got some wind blowing in there, I mean, that's a high percentage area, and I would just cover as many of those high percentage spots as possible. I caught some fish about halfway back in some of the coves, but some of the fish were main lake stuff. So there's still. It's not like a deal where you just go down the bank and catch 20 fish, or it wasn't today. Maybe there's probably some days that have happened like that recently, but today it was still kind of jumping around and, you know, covering some water and stuff. But I think you'll be good. The best thing that I said there was the water's not chocolate milk. You know, it's been really nasty and chocolatey over there. So that's what I got on Kincaid right there. Let's do a couple of these reports real quick, because I think somebody was on here wondering what was going on with Clearwater, and I got a report from Ricky Orick, and this was today or yesterday. He said the lake is still up 13 feet over summer pool, but it's falling. I think last week it was 25 feet or something crazy, 22 feet. It blows me away. He said the water clarity on the Black River is 5 feet plus. So 5 foot of visibility or so on the Black River. And then the Webb Creek arm is a little bit less than 3 foot visibility. He said he caught a few bass in the back of the flooded bushes up in the creek channels. And one of those fish was a smallmouth on a spinnerbait. So that's the Clearwater report. I'm not sure about the water temps, but I would imagine they're probably, you know, mid to upper 50s, just a guess, but that seems to be what most of the lakes around here are running, that upper 50-degree range.
Yeah.
And I've got a Wapapello report from Doug Cheatham. Just got off the phone with him about, I don't know, 2 hours ago. And they're fishing the Anglers. There's Angler's Choice down there this weekend. And he's been on them. So as long as things don't change, I think he's going to do good. He said the lake is at 360, which is summer pool. Water temps are 62 to 65. It's going to be a little bit warmer up in the creeks. And the river is about a foot of visibility, and the creeks are 1 to 2 foot of visibility. He said, no, that's good. It's good color. And it's that color that's kind of like Kincaid is now. It's a decent stain. It's not super muddy. But he did say, we got that rain last night, and you're going to see some of that. There's a possibility that some of that dirtier water is going to come down. And I do believe he was saying that they're calling for rain tomorrow evening too. So it doesn't take a lot of rain for the St. Francis River to get muddy. So that's something to look for. It just doesn't take too much rain to get that sucker muddy. Let's see. He said there's still some fish on the river, but he's starting to see more and more of the fish moving back into the creeks. And they're not spawning yet, but they're close. And that's what's going on there. Those river fish start moving back to the creeks in the pre-spawn areas and setting up to spawn. There's still been a pitching a jig and a soft plastic spike going on, but it's not so much. There's not as much cover in the water now since it's fallen back to summer pool. I think last week or the week before it was several feet above summer pool. So you had a lot of cover, a lot of bushes, a lot of laydowns and stuff in the water. It's pulled back down, so there's not as much of that in the water. And that's really what he said. He said the fishing is still good. It's still going strong. It's still pretty good. He said if things hold up, he's expecting that there's going to be several 20-pound bags caught this weekend out there. Wow. Wapapello is one of those lakes that I remember fishing it. I used to fish it a little bit, probably like 20 years ago in a bass club. We'd get down there at least once or twice a year. And between then and now, I've only fished it just a couple times. I mean, I went with Phil Meyer last year and Doug took me. But I remember back then it was hard to catch a limit. There was a lot of smaller fish in that lake, and it just really has responded, and it's super healthy right now. I mean, Doug was telling me I think he had the lake record or something for a 5-fish limit in a tournament. It was like 29 something pounds at Wapapello.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's like a Gunnersville sack.
Wow.
I think
that's
last
good.
year.
That's good in Texas.
That's good anywhere. I mean, a 30-pound, 29-pound bag, that's huge. He was saying, I think that there was a 26 or 27-pound sack brought in last year or within the last couple of years. So it's not uncommon for a 20-plus pound bag to be caught out of Wapapello. So that's impressive.
Sounds like that lake's on a good upcycle right now.
Yeah, it really, whatever's going on in there is good. And they're fat fish. They're those real nice, taller fish. They just got that good look to them. And one more report from Phil. I just mentioned Phil. He sent me a text. He said, "Hey man, I went to Fredericktown. If you're interested in a report." And I said, sure. So he was there, I guess last week or this week sometime. He said the water temps were 58 to 62. And this is Fredericktown City Lake. The water clarity was about a foot. He said the fish were very active on a spinnerbait and a chatterbait. He said he lost a big one on a spinnerbait. He had it pinned up against a laydown and it pulled off. So I think it was probably one.
Have you noticed something? Have you noticed of the fishing reports we're getting? Have you noticed a higher incidence of hearing about the spinnerbait over the chatterbait lately?
The spinnerbait for sure.
Yeah,
I've been seeing that a little more.
It's interesting. I'm not sure why. Maybe guys are, because sometimes it can be kind of the same bite. But I've heard several reports of a spinner bait as opposed to a chatterbait, and I don't know what it means, but I've noticed that, and that's at lots of different places.
Yeah, I think that spinnerbait is starting to come back, and I actually, in a video that I did today, I mentioned that I did a couple different videos today. I don't know which ones I'll keep, but I was just going to do some talking about different techniques and stuff, and some of the things that I've learned over the years about them. And one of them was spinnerbait, and I remember Cumberland Lake a couple years ago. I believe it was it might have been the FLW tour. I can't remember what tour that was that went down there, and they smashed them on a spinnerbait. And there was kind of a resurgence, kind of a buzz again about the spinnerbait. And it seems like you're starting to hear a little bit more about it each year.
Yeah.
Because it was like chatterbait for a while, bladed jig for a while.
It was, the newest and the greatest, and it's still a great bait. I still, I've always got one tied on this time of year. I don't care what lake I'm on. I've got one tied on. But I've just noticed several reports, lots of different lakes. You hear about spinnerbait a little bit right now.
Yeah, it's making a comeback. Here's a question from Simon. He says, "What baits do you recommend this time of year?"
Well, spinnerbait, obviously, is catching fish. And the one thing that's nice about spinnerbait, the water came up and went back down in general around here. So you got these weed clumps that are kind of right at the surface. And sometimes the chatterbait struggles with that. And the spinnerbait, you can kind of walk through there a little bit. It's a little bit more efficient. And with the changing water color that we have, we've had rain, then it didn't rain for a while. Now we're getting rain again. So watercolor is changing. So you can play with your blade combinations and your skirts. It's a little bit more versatile that way. Maybe that's part of the reason the spinnerbait is working. Plus, and you've got the gizzard chatter up shallow right now, so you can kind of match a profile with a big spinnerbait with those gizzard shad. All that being said, I would also have a chatterbait tied on. Every lake's different. I don't know where you fish. And then I would have some sort of Texas rig, like beaver or D-bomb or something along those lines. And then I would have a jig. And then, your standard DT6 or wiggle wart or something like that. And that's kind of covers a lot of the basics right there for a lot of our lakes. There's some other stuff we're going to talk about a little later too, but that's some basic stuff right there.
Yeah, definitely. This is that time of year when you can, it's not quite here yet, but when you just think power fishing, square bill, it can really just be about covering a lot of water until they get locked in on the beds. But yeah, everything Ron mentioned is things I'm throwing. Like today, I threw a bladed jig, a spinnerbait, swim jig. Those are 3 baits that I always have tied on, because some days they'll eat all 3 of them, and some days they want one over the other. So you just have to have them all 3 up on your. But hey, some kind of pitching bait, something, whatever you're, a beaver, a D-bomb, or whatever in a jig.
Yeah.
I mean, and then top water too. I didn't get bit on it today. I threw a frog a little bit. I saw a couple of fish blow up, and I thought maybe I was going to get lucky and catch them. I think they were chasing crappie. The crappie were kind of moved up. I think there was a couple of bass that were chasing the crappie around for a little bit, but
they'll definitely eat them.
A frog or some kind of topwater is another thing that you might want to have tied on. But just keep it simple. Really, don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. Just put something in your hand that you got some confidence, and just cover some water. Look for those high percentage spots. Wind is your friend, and wood is good. Always. Grass makes bass. I was trying to think of something to rhyme with that. We're close.
That's
got Jay
doubly
down-
true on the wind this time of year.
Yeah, definitely. Wind just
Yeah,
makes it
that
easier,
wind
you know.
is- yeah,
It piles of suckers
whatever
up.
fish are living there.
Let me we got Jay's coming in down here in the queue. Let's see here. Let me do one more question, Jay, and I'll get you in here real quick. This is from Colby Baker Fishing. He said he's rigging rods for Egypt tomorrow. What should I throw?
Well, I haven't been down there for a couple days, but I don't think a lot's changed. You got to have something to fish the water willow clumps. You know, whatever your preference is around those water willow clumps. There's some fish I think that have been pushed tight into that due to fishing pressure. So that's you got to be able to attack that. And then just like we just talked about, it's just basic stuff after that. You know, if you're going to run back into the dirtier water, you know, all that stuff we just talked about, spinnerbait, chatterbait, whatever, jig, and buzzbait might be something to maybe get some fish to react. You know, the thing about Egypt is you got to think about you got to find the fish, but then sometimes you got to make them react. I've seen every lure go by them. Sometimes, you know, something like a buzzbait or something will get them to react. But just keep it simple.
Yeah, I got two things for you, Colby. And they're both shaky head worms. I was over there. I was at Egypt last Thursday, and the shaky head was what we caught most of our fish on. Now, in a tournament situation, you might want to throw a jig. I think you get a little bit bigger bites on a jig most of the time. I mean, you'll still catch a 3-pounder or so on the shaky head, but we caught a lot of fish on a shaky head. There's definitely a shaky head bite going on. This is the Hawgz Custom Baits Feral Hog Jr. or the Zoom Finesse Worm. These are probably my two favorites right now. We were throwing this and getting a lot of bites in a watermelon candy. Watermelon candy over there on Egypt is just a killer color. It's always been a good color. And then this green pumpkin. And here's the key, that little bit of chartreuse on there. That little bit of chartreuse, a little bit of contrast goes a long way. I'll do the same thing with this, is I'll just take a little spiking pin and just kind of touch it. You see how they did a really good job with this. They didn't overdo it. It's just the tip. That's how I like it. I don't like it. You know, some companies like even Zoom, if you buy their tipped out worms, a lot of times it's this much, you know, where my finger's at. And I mean, me personally, I don't like it that much. I like it just kind of just highlighted. Same thing on the crawls. I just kind of like to touch it a little bit. I don't like to overdo it. I think it looks more natural. But shaky head, Colby, I would definitely have a shaky head tied on. 1/4 ounce, 3/16 a 1/4 ounce, whatever you're comfortable with. It's a great way to catch fish right now. Let's bring Jay in. He's hanging out there. He's got all these deer behind him. It's kind of scary. Did you know you had deer looking at your behind you there?
They're my pets.
They're your pets. Okay. They probably don't eat much, do they?
No, they don't. They don't say much either. But I think we need to settle one thing here before we go any farther.
Okay.
Gabe just threw a couple knives there, and nobody bid on it. How about the first topwater fish there between you two?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Gabe won.
Good. Thanks, Jay, bringing that up. I totally forgot about that.
No problem. So what was the bet?
Yeah.
It was I think it was $1 or a guide trip to Mille. I'm not sure. Either or.
We settled on a guide trip to Mille.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. That's worth way more than $1. It was in a farm pond, but it still counts, right? I mean,
I might have to get in that bet next year if it's those stakes are up.
well, my buddy Dave that's on here,
Come on.
he caught one. Yeah, come on. He caught one on top like a couple weeks ago, but he wasn't in the competition, so it doesn't count.
Well, good deal. Thanks for having me on. You know,
Yeah.
one thing, this is J Beffa excited. So I'm pretty mellow guy, but I tell you, man, I've been jumping out of my skin today, waiting to tell you guys this. We have, I have a longtime friend, Shad DeBoer. We mentioned this before in one of the feeds. It's called the Warrior William Project, and it's actually a benefit tournament that's put on at Lake of the Ozarks October 9th this year out of Red Oak. $170 entry fee. The giveaways, silent auction, phenomenal. But the newest and greatest thing that's going to happen, and it's going to start on April 12th. They're actually going through a website, through a charity website that actually will sell raffle tickets starting on April 12th. And it's only going to go until May 17th. They are actually going to raffle off a Garmin unit with live scope. So a combo package, $25 a ticket.
Wow.
Yeah. So you can actually buy 4 of them and actually get 1 free. So 5 tickets for $100 or 1 for 25. And the drawing is going to be announced live. It's actually computer generated, so we'll actually have the name before from the company that does the raffle, and we'll actually announce it possibly May 17th. That's the final day of the drawing. Possibly we'll try doing it that night on Gabe's show, 10 Horse Money and Backyard Bassin. So everybody be looking for that. You can find tickets. Winning Edge Fishing, 10 Horse Money will share it, myself, and then also you can actually go to the website warriorwilliam.com and buy the tickets on there. But great cause, you know, it's Rett syndrome is what it's for. So Billy Abashan, it was his son that passed away, and he was on here earlier. I think he's probably still on here, but awesome. But
Very
At
cool.
warriorwilliam.com.
yes, warriorwilliam.com. And that tournament's actually limited only 50 boats too. So you might want to start signing up if you're interested in that. I mean, they feed you everything. So it's a great event. So looking forward to it. It's hopefully I can fish it this year.
That's
Excellent.
great. That's a great cause. I remember you talking about that a while back. So that a live scope, that's a graph in the live scope for $25. That's your chance.
Yep. It's a 93 SB. So with the live scope transducer.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
That's very good.
Yeah, really excited for somebody to win that. If it's me, it is not rigged because I will be entering.
Well, I'm gonna buy one too. That's like a
But I will.
couple $1,000 package there, isn't it?
I would say you're probably looking at $2,500.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So pretty awesome.
So basically 5 chances for $100, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Huh.
Okay.
Good deal, man.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. Yeah. So I'll put all that information down in the description box after the show. So if you guys want to get on there and go at least check out that foundation. And you said April 12th is when the tickets will start being for.
Yes.
April 12th is when they go on sale.
Yeah, you can actually buy them online. There'll actually be a link to buy them online, and then it'll actually be drawn on May 17th.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, super excited about that. But
so you're excited about something else too coming up, man. Talk about what's coming up here real shortly.
You know, the biggest thing is this spring has just played into probably the best spring that I love to fish. You know, the jerk bait, spinner bait, wiggle wart type crankbait. You know, that is the way I love to fish. You know, when guys are out there catching 27, 29 pounds on freaking A rig, you know, I just can't stand that. But you know, with the spinner bait and the jerk bait bite just killing it this year, I'm absolutely loving it. But you know, I've been preparing for like a year now for this national champion, actually not the national championship, the Central Regional Bassmasters at Lake Milford in the middle of Kansas. And you know, it is a lake that is hard to get information on we are so lucky to have so many things in our wheelhouse today with technology, you know, YouTube and, you know, everything that you can research on a lake. This one here has been extremely difficult because the bass fishermen out there are very quiet. They don't publish much on YouTube or anything. So, you know, I've went above and beyond. I've actually talked to the biologists out there. One of the main baits out there on the lake is actually gizzard shad. So Hawgz Custom Baits, Eric, he's made some phenomenal grub tail swim baits for me that, I mean, are identical to the gizzard shad that are out there. And I'm super stoked about that. But I haven't picked them up yet. So I was hoping to get them today. But this is one that we call hot sauce. And you can see the paddle on it. But man, it's these things. I'm so pumped up about them. I can't see if I'm.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
So you know, like it's hard to see it, but that paddle tail is awesome.
There you go.
So you know, I can't see where I'm at, but it's hard to do. But
I'm actually putting. What kind of watercolor they have there? Have you been able to find that out?
Oh yeah, definitely. I've been out. I made 3 trips out there. I've actually put some habitat in the lake. I've done a lot of homework on it. So good. I've actually made 23 brush piles. 2 of them actually came apart when I was getting ready to put them in. So I only got 21 in, but just a PVC type brush pile with 6-inch PVC in the middle with concrete in a 5-gallon bucket with 1.5 inch tubing. So luckily I have a lot of friends in the construction industry and I was able to get everything for pretty much no cost. I think I got about $23 and a couple bags of concrete and that's about it. So to make 23 of them, you know, just, yeah, to have that confidence to be able to pull up on a spot and know that something's there and you didn't have to go look for it. But, you know, I spent, I've got a total of 7 days on the water out there now. It actually went off limits on Sunday. So it is off limits now and just can't get any information for any guides or anything on the lake, which isn't a big deal because I don't think there is any guides on the lake from all the information I found. But I've actually went and talked to the biologist last month when I was out there, and we actually talked about the crawfish that are in the lake. I mean, it's a great resource. Almost every lake has some type of, you know, Missouri conservation or Kansas conservation or whatever it may be. But I really haven't looked that in depth into a lake, and this one I've dissected to death. The Great Plains crawfish is the biggest crawfish out there. The gizzard shad's the biggest shad. So, you know, what's fallen into play, you know, the jerk bait, I'll probably still throw that because there's some big smallies out there. Saying all that, in practice, I was really targeting the big smallmouth and looking for them, and I was retying one day and I got blown back into this cove and I picked up a spinnerbait and started throwing it around and I caught some really nice largemouth. So, you know, not everything on the internet you find is true. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's in the tournament. Actually, first day of practice is April 18th. So, you know, a lot of things are going to change between now and then. And, you know, I think it's probably going to be a full-fledged bed fishing deal. And with no current on that lake, you know, those fish, even the smallmouth, are going to spawn shallow. So, you know, I'm kind of looking forward to that. And I'm ate up with fishing, but I'm more ate up with bed fishing than anything. One thing I did last year was I took this Tokyo rig, which Gabe, you turned me on to this Cumberland Pro style. So last year I actually put a swim bait on it, a little bit different than what I'm going to do this year. This year I'm going to use the Hawgz paddle tail. You swim this thing through their bed, and you wouldn't believe the reaction that you're going to get off that. You know, that's a pretty nifty little secret there that is no longer a secret because I just told you. But
when I first got the Tokyo rig, the first one I bought was whoever made them, I can't remember. But then I got some of the Cumberland Pro ones, the Easy T rig, and I started playing around with them a little bit. And I put a little swimmer on there, like a, I don't know, like a 3.3 Kitech or something. I can't remember what it was.
That's what I used last year.
But man, it's cool. It's a totally different look. I can't really explain it, but it just it's different. I don't think the fish see that. So and you can drag, you can reel it and drag it. That dropper's bouncing on the bottom, and it just gives that swim bait a completely different look. It's pretty cool.
If you ever bed fish, I don't know how many guys on here do. A lot of guys will steer away from it, but I love it. But a lot of times when you see a bluegill come into that bed, you will see that bass chase it off. But you can throw a jig in there 900 times, and it'll take him 900 times to bite it. And that is more similar to like a bluegill. When you swim that thing through their bed and you have that Tokyo rig that's keeping it on the bottom and you're keeping it in the strike zone, you wouldn't believe how many chase it off that bed. I had a lot of success last year doing that. And another thing I do, a lot of pollen in the air this time of year. So I actually take a squirt gun, go to Walmart, get you a squirt gun, fill it up with Dawn dish soap, and squirt it onto the water. And it basically separates all the pollen on top. And it basically gives you a microscope.
So you can
on
see
that bed. Yeah, you can see that bed. It separates all that pollen. So that's a really neat deal, I'm probably going to get a call here in a minute.
Parking the boat. Always parking the boat upwind of the bed to block the wind over the bed if you can, depending on where the bed's positioned. We do that a lot on Mille, and they even use. Have you seen those? I call them highway cones. I don't know what they're really called.
Oh yeah.
You look over the side of the boat and the cone.
Yeah.
And the
That's
bottom
a flogger,
of the surface.
Flogger. Yep. Flogger is what it's called.
Yeah. And
they are so awkward though, because they're so big and you can't hardly store them in the boat anywhere.
Yeah. I call them a caution cone or a highway cone.
Yeah.
That's what they look
I'm
like
gonna have to plug in real quick. I'm about ready to go dead here.
Okay, sure, go right ahead.
All right.
Yeah, Ron, you probably had a lot of experience fishing for, or the opportunity to fish for bedding smallmouth, I guess, up at Mille, or do you guys just totally leave them alone?
Yeah. No, I'll fish for them. Smallmouth are completely different on a bed than a largemouth. Smallmouth is very easy to catch. You don't have to be. They're just easy to catch, and so usually on a guide trip, I'll catch spawners for maybe half of the day. Then we'll go eat lunch, and then I'll try to have some other fish located, and probably some of those fish are spawning too, but they're just deep enough where you don't see it. But the smallmouth are very. You can catch a smallmouth, put it back on the bed, and come back an hour later and catch it again. They're just not that. They're just not totally different than a largemouth. At least on Mille, I don't have. So I assume, Jay, if you can find some spawners down there on this lake, as far as smallmouth go, I would assume they'd be pretty easy to catch. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I did that in Canada one year. In Canada one year, I caught the same fish off the same bed 3 times in a row.
I believe it.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
I had a buddy up. I'm sorry. I had a buddy up at Mille, and he broke off on a tube on a bed fish. And I said, "That's all right. I'll get your tube back." I pitched in there and caught the fish, pulled the tube out of its mouth, and gave it back to my buddy. So, back to that. Look at these. I don't know. Can you guys see that? Look at them bluegill that he made.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Pull it over the other way. Yeah, right there. And I hold it up just a little bit. There you go, right there.
Them things, the paddle tail, just phenomenal bluegill.
He's getting really good at that.
Oh, he's getting phenomenal at it. And, I don't have the patience for it. It takes him a while to make 4 of those, but, they're unbelievable when he gets them made. We talked about spinnerbait earlier, and, typically this time of year when the big gizzard shad are coming up, I like throwing like a 6 to 7, number 6 or number 7 blade, big old blade. But this year for me seems to be quite different. We've had a lot of dirty water. and this is an angler asset spinnerbait, and you see the color blades on it, the color blade, the red color.
Oh yeah, right.
That red and orange with this dirty water this year has been phenomenal. I've been catching a lot of fish on those. And, you know, one trick that I've been doing, a lot of guys will use super glue, and they'll actually put their trailer on the super glue. But I've actually been getting the wacky tool, and I've been doing this for several years, but just using an O-ring on that to hold that on. And you wouldn't believe how good that holds the bait on. That's
just putting pressure on it.
Yeah, just putting pressure on it. That's one of my biggest pet peeves whenever your trailer slides down. And I tell you that has done a phenomenal job. That's been a great trick for me.
Huh. That's cool.
I've
So
never
here's
done that.
I haven't either. Billy says he says seems like the sinkos went south and the fish aren't seeing them anymore. They're still fire too. Yeah,
I think
man.
we're a little bit early.
Yeah.
I think just a tad early. I think, you know, we'll be getting into that here shortly in the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. The Cinco bite, you know, wacky rig bite will be coming on big time. You know, one thing that has kind of went to the wayside has been a floating worm. You know, when the Mayflowers down in Kentucky used to always bloom, the floating worm had been a phenomenal bite. I actually pulled as a co-angler fishing a BFL about 15 years ago at Lake of the Ozarks. I pulled a guy from Arkansas, and he was throwing a floating worm, and he rigged it kind of different. It was very interesting the way he rigged it. He actually went about a quarter of the way in, and it gave the head of the worm a little bit more motion. It was really neat the way he rigged that thing. And he actually caught an 8, 9, and a 7-pounder during that tournament and won it. BFL Lake of the Ozarks. So after that, it was, you know, I was really hooked on that floating worm.
So talk about the plastic in the Hawgz Custom Baits. Is it, you know, I got some of those and they do float really well. Is there any salt in there at all?
You know, we can add salt to them. We add salt to the Cincos, but on like the trick worm type baits, finesse type worms, we are not adding salt. But, you know, we are a custom company. So, you know, custom colors, custom material, whatever you want, we can make happen. We have a really good relationship with the manufacturer of the plastic, and we can pretty much do anything you want. And as you've seen, that bluegill, Eric has become a master on making the bait. So, you know.
Yeah, he sent me a picture the other day. I'll show it really quick. It was pretty impressive. So he sent me a picture of like that swim bait in like a gizzard shad kind of color. Which
don't show that one.
Okay, that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
that's pretty sick. That's dialed in. That looks. I don't understand how he does that. But then I said, man, it'd look even better with like a little bit of yellow or gold, like on the lateral line. And so a little bit later, he's like, "You mean like that? Can you see that gold on there?"
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he just threw like a gold pinstripe in there, but. That's a cool looking bait, man.
I would be interested in some of those in a perch color.
He just did some for a guy up north in a perch color. Yeah, I'll send you a picture of them, Ron. I'll send you some.
Okay.
Okay, here's the. Yeah, they're unique. I threw them this year on an A rig, and they just got a different action to them. Okay, Bassmaster says, I've got some questions about tournament boat requirements. I'm signed up for FLW MLF, but they said they require an 18-foot boat. I was wondering if my TXW 175 qualifies. It's registered as an 18-foot. Jay, any opinion on that?
You'd probably have to go to FLW. The rules changed so much since I fished them a couple years ago. And, you know, I was actually shocked whenever they gave Cliff Boucher a hard time about the 10 boat last year. So that was
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So you'd probably have to go to them just to get the
okay.
Correct. Yeah, the correct answer.
I would say, and I'm just hypothetical here, but if it's registered as an 18-foot, then I guess it would probably most likely qualify. But yeah, like Jay said, just call them and ask them. I know one thing they do require is that you have a console with a steering wheel. You know, you could have a 18-foot boat with a 150 horsepower tiller handle, and you're not going to be able to fish. You got to have a steering wheel and a console.
I think the motor restriction's 250 or less. And I think the liability insurance has to be 300,000.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm checking some of these questions here real quick.
But I got a crazy couple weeks coming up here. I'm actually leaving for Milford next Saturday. I go to Milford. Practice actually starts on the 18th on that Sunday. So I get 3 days of practice. The competition starts on Wednesday. So hopefully I'll have 3 days of fishing. 2 days are guaranteed. And then the third day, hopefully I can get a bid to go to the national championship again. So I'm super stoked about that. And then I get home Friday night. I pack up and I head to Lake Chickamauga for the USA Bassin Championship. So 2 weekends, 2 full weeks of fishing. I'm going to be wore up.
How do we follow you? Is there a way to follow you when you're out in Kansas?
Yeah. So during the tournament, you can actually follow me on Bassmasters. We actually will be participating in Bass Tracks, just like the pros do. And then they will have a live weigh-in every day. Yeah. It's really exciting.
Okay.
You know, my family hasn't been too involved. You know, they just know that I fish a lot. And last year that was super excited for them to be able to watch me at Toledo Bend, especially when I won. So watching the Bass Tracks and everything and seeing what I did the last day when, you know, I dropped a big old bag of 19 pounds and blew everybody away. That was pretty awesome for everybody. So hopefully I can repeat it again.
Here's a question for you guys. I'm going fishing tomorrow evening, and I want to catch at least a 3 to 5 pound largemouth bass in a clean to semi-clear pond. So what do I use lure-wise? I'm going to be using a medium heavy fast action rod.
I've got an answer that's going to be different than what he thinks we're going to answer, and then we can give him another answer.
Can we write it down? Because I bet you we have the same thing.
No, this is different.
Nah.
I don't know anything about the pond, but if it's got clear water, it's awful hard to guarantee anyone catch a 3 or 5 pound fish. But if I had to catch a 3 or 5 pound fish in any body of water and someone was holding a gun to my head, I would be out right now after dark with a black spinnerbait, with a black, that'll catch him too, with a black number 5 Colorado. The springtime night bite is probably the most missed bite I think that there is. And I'm usually out at night by the middle of March, and April it can be dumb how good it is this time of year at night with those fish that are moving shallow, just a black spinnerbait. Yeah. So
that makes sense. You got it. I mean, you think about all the pressure they're getting in the daytime, and the water's warm enough. They're already up. They're feeding. They got all this daytime pressure. Why wouldn't they feed at night too?
They do, and the fishing's phenomenal this time of year at night. So if that guy's got clear water in a pond, he's going to be out there in the evening. I would stay till after it got dark and throw that black spinnerbait.
Jay, what you got?
Until it got dark, he held a pretty good lure.
Oh,
I would probably throw something top water during the daytime, and maybe like a big old buzz bait and just slow turn them blades. Something maybe with little action, little loud clacking sound like the Carcagator head knocker. I like throwing mine on a 1/2 ounce head, but a 3/4 inch blade, a 3/4 ounce blade, and it makes a big clacking sound. And especially in a clear lake like that, I mean, that's the time to catch a big one.
Yeah. I'm going 6-inch Cinco. I just throw a big 6-inch Cinco out there and let it soak, man. See what happens.
Yeah.
I used to throw a big Cinco a lot from Wave Worms. It was called the bamboo stick.
Yeah.
That thing looked like a cigar, and I mean that thing was phenomenal.
Billy says a chatterbait.
Yeah.
Chatterbait. It's it catches them. Okay, here's a question here. Is the jerkbait still a good choice this weekend? Would a floating or suspending model work better with this warmer weather watered up? Let me jump in real quick on that. That floating model, that is overlooked just like night fishing in the spring, like Ron said. That floater is killer, especially when those fish get right at the very end of the pre-spawn, when they're up super shallow and they're kind of territorial. I've caught some really good fish on like a floating rogue, just twitching it. Same place you would, pitch a bait in there. If you can get that, if you can pitch that minnow, that floating minnow in there and just twitch it a couple times, it's a different topwater. They don't see it all that often. But yeah, the jerkbait works year round. It's just one of those things that we have a tendency to get distracted by other baits. We kind of put it in the back of the closet because there's so many new things that come into effect. But what do you think, Ron? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I can remember a Harkins. The 4-man Harkins was one on a floating. I think it's the number 11 Rapala. That floating Rapala is, that's just the brand I throw, but brand doesn't matter. But that is that lure's been around forever, but it's gotten forgotten about, and it is. You're right. That thing's a killer. And then the other thing too is that suspending jerkbait on, if you're fishing one of these pressured lakes like Egypt, and those fish get pushed off the bank, and sometimes they just kind of suspend out there away from whatever it was they were sitting on because they just got ran off or whatever it was. You can still catch them on suspending jerkbait. For those fish that are just doing something weird.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jay?
Even though that, we're seeing 70, 80 degree weather during the day, that night is really what drives everything, that night temperature. And, we're still having some very cold nights. This morning it was chilly out. So, we're still in that transitional stage. So, until that water temperature and that night temperature gets a solid 50 degrees, that water temperature does not shoot up until then. It fluctuates so much right now. And then fish constantly are looking, for that spawning opportunity, and they're constantly moving back and forth through that water column. So you'll find a lot of spawning fish or a lot of suspending fish right now. And I'll definitely have the jerkbait on out there at Lake Milford. But I will one up you, Ron. The number 18 is the bait to throw.
The 18? Okay.
Oh, I love that bait. Yeah, I always have that one tied on. That's I've caught some big old fish, and I don't know. I think Chickamauga, I'll probably hit it after. I'll probably hit it post spawn the way it's lining out right now. But I have that thing tied on already for Chickamauga, because if you can find one around a bed, protect and fry with that number 18, they can't resist it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you, Jay. Okay, Bassmaster wants to know, so could I send in a sample or a picture of a worm I've had made and see if you all can make it for me?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have triple injectors. We have a lot of options that we can do. We have a core shot mold. So, everything is hand poured. So, everything is customized. So definitely we've been pretty darn successful on matching baits.
What's do you have a minimum?
50 bait, we like to say. Just, depends. We can send out a couple samples to him first, if it's just a bag or something, to make sure he's comfortable with it. But, we're just a small company, so we'll work with them on whatever we can do.
Oh, here's a interesting question. He said he actually asked this last week, but ran out of time. What does the 17-year cicada broad X hatch or whatever they do? Does that make the topwater bite better? So the cicada hatch, have you noticed fish keen in on that when it happens?
It's a good question.
Well,
I don't know if I really know.
I'm only 16, so I've never really been alive for 17 years to see one.
yeah, you just got your driver's license, man. You got a nice boat for somebody that doesn't drive.
No, I definitely
Yeah.
think it, it has the fish looking up. And I remember one time, I think I was actually either in 9th grade or 10th grade, and there was a big cicada hatch, and that was phenomenal topwater. We were actually throwing big old jitterbugs, and they were killing them that day.
Yeah. I was trout fishing one summer when the cicada hatch was coming out. And I don't know if this was just somebody trying to take advantage of the buzz and the hype, but this guy was tying these cicada flies, big old things. And I bought one just because they were kind of cool. They were like little works of art. And it was horrible to throw. It was way too heavy. And when it landed on the water, it was just so loud, it scared everything. But apparently, I mean, the trout were eating those things too. So I don't know. I've seen them on the water. I've seen them flipping around and buzzing and carrying on and stuff. And it's not like they go unnoticed. I'm sure they get their fair share of them if they want them. So I always think that mayfly hatch is a cool one that happens too.
Me too.
That's every year.
I was getting ready to say that.
Yeah,
Kentucky Lake, that's known for that.
What's cool, we get to see on Mille, the further north you go, these bug hatches are really important. And the bug hatch is a big thing that Mother Nature helps feed the post-spawn fish with up there. But most of that bug hatch, the larvae come up off the bottom of the lake. And so you see the bug hatch before it actually happens for days. You see these clouds on your graph. Kind of looks like a school of shad or something. And you'll see them coming up off the bottom of the lake. And then presto, you've got a midge hatch or a mayfly hatch or whatever the particular hatch is. But in Minnesota, it always, Mother Nature seems to have timed it, a lot of it, with the first big one with post spawn, and you see it really helps those fish feed back up post spawn, and it can make the fishing tough because there's so much food in the system. But it's pretty cool to sit in the evening when it's calm and watch some smallies come up and slurp those mayflies. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was fishing a BFL. Kentucky Lake. You were talking about Kentucky Lake, Jay, and we pulled up on these bluff walls, and it was crazy. It was one of those tough days where we weren't getting bit, and then all of a sudden we pulled up on these bluffs down there. I can't remember exactly where they were at. They were pretty far south, and I know they were far south because, there's a part 2 to the story. I'll tell you that in a second. But these fish were just sitting there on that bluff wall, and we went from having no keepers to catching. I caught 4 keepers. I caught like a 19-inch smallmouth on top water. It was awesome. I got to see the whole thing. He came up really slow and just kind of sipped it. Caught 3 of the keepers there. And then my boater, he had, I had 4 in the boat and he still didn't have anything. And I started putting my stuff away because we had basically, I think we had about a 35-minute run, 40-minute run, and we had about 50 minutes to make it. So he catches a keeper, and then I'm kind of like, dude, we probably need to go. And he catches another keeper. I'm like, are we gonna make it? He's like, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll be fine. And long story short, when he catches his, you're a co-angler, so it's like you can't just like put a gun to his head and just, hijack his boat and take off. But I knew where we were at, and I knew it was a long run. He got so caught up in the moment that we were late. I had 8 something pounds, and I had 8, just a little over 8 pounds, and we were 8 minutes late.
Oh.
Yeah. So we put down on pad and we go up there to the net boat, where you throw your little bob in there with your boat number on it, your GPS tracking deal. And he's like, "You're 8 minutes late." And my boater says, "What's that mean?" I said, "It means we didn't get anything. It means nothing. It means, well, maybe they won't remember, or they won't recognize or something." I'm like, "No, dude, we're not going to get any weight. We're not going to get any money." I would have gotten, I think, 19th place in that tournament. It was a really tough tournament, but I couldn't make him leave. And it was because of that dang mayfly hatch. You know, we pulled up in there and those mayflies were on those bluff walls and the fish were just going crazy. And it was like 30 minutes of bliss just because of those little mayflies. So it's pretty cool. That's the only time I've really experienced it, you know, like going on that heavy like that. So
What's worse is the run back when that hatch is happening. They don't
Oh,
take very
yeah.
good. Yeah.
yeah, you got to clean your glasses off. Shane says his dad caught 4 limits this past Saturday on Kentucky Lake in the Jetta on an A rig. Huh.
His dad won it last year.
Last year he did.
Yeah, his dad won that tournament last year.
Kentucky Lake is
Coming back.
It's coming back. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's kind of nice, isn't it?
It is.
It's kind of nice to hear that. And
It is.
You know, I'm happy for them. They put so much work into it. So I'm happy for them.
Getting those carp out of there. If they can just get some grass back, if that grass would kind of start coming back, I think it'd be a full circle then. I mean, everything's starting to happen, but I think the missing piece is the grass. The commercial fishermen are just hammering down on those carp. They've got those knocked down. The shad population is coming back. You're starting to see a really good supply of those small keepers, like those 15 inch, you know, those line burners. There's starting to be kind of those limit filler fish are starting to come back. And it's just the grass. I think maybe next couple of years, the grass will come back. I don't know. That's all dependent on the high muddy water. If we can have a couple winters where we get a low flow, I think it'll come back. So,
Hey, Gabe, when you was down there, did you see any electric fences across the coves for the carp?
no, I didn't.
No, I heard that the other day.
Yeah, we basically ran out of moors and fished the secondary channel there on the main lake, and we fished Big Bear Creek. So we didn't really go back into a lot of coves. And then on the LBL side, we did fish like a Pisgah Bay in that area.
Yeah.
So we weren't running back and fishing like channel swings in the back and fishing the flatter stuff like a lot of guys were doing. So maybe they were out there. I don't know. I didn't really sample it. I didn't see enough water to know one way or another.
Yeah, I knew they had them at the dams, but I heard they had a couple of those electric fences across the coves, trying to keep them in some of the coves.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's who was it? Well, when we had Mark Menendez on, he was talking about that, how they do that. You know, they actually kind of herd them. You know, they'll set out their hoop nets and then they kind of fire up their motor and kind of encourage them to go towards the hoop nets. And then that's one of the ways that they use. That's one of the tactics they use to catch them like that. Pretty interesting. So we were talking about Kentucky Lake, and one of the baits that I used, the techniques that I used to catch the fish that I did in that tournament was Carolina rig. So I figured maybe we can touch on a Carolina rig for 10 minutes or so and then shut this thing down. What are you guys up for that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bait, if I did a video, some people may have watched it or not, but I did talk about the bait that I was using in that Kentucky Lake BFL. And it's kind of something that I just kind of stumbled across, this particular brand and this particular bait. It's something I hadn't ever thrown on a Carolina rig, but I was looking for a crawl and the water was stained. And normally on a Carolina rig, the crawl that I use is just a little speed crawl. You know, I've had a lot of good success with that, but I thought I wanted something a little bit bigger, and I wanted something that wasn't June bug. I wanted something kind of, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly colored, something that's kind of a hybrid brown. And this is what I came up with. This is the Gambler Burner Crawl, and it is their
Okay.
Killer G is the color. So here's something that's a little bit different about this crawl. Obviously, it's a little bit fatter than the Speed Crawl, but these flippers, you know, I could have put a Rage Crawl on there because that's what I was thinking. But the Rage Crawl's got a lot more action, and I was thinking the fish that we were fishing for were kind of in a negative mood because I'd been throwing a shaky head. I threw the Maxent General on a shaky head. I threw a tube and I threw a jig, and they were just kind of tapping it. So to me, it seemed like they weren't really wanting to feed. So I didn't want a big, heavy thumping action like the Rage Crawl, but I wanted a bigger size crawl so they could pick up on it because the water was really stained and it was moving fast. So I was looking in my box and I'm like, I like that color. I like that profile. It's not overpowering, and I'm going to try it. And sure enough, it didn't take long. And I started getting some bites on it. And this is something that I typically will punch with. Let's see if I've got the package here. Yeah, so here's the package. This is a Gambler Burner Crawl, Killer G. But it's a great punching bait. You know, I've had some really good success at Kincaid and Cedar last fall and summer with this bait. But, you know, now I know it works great on a Carolina rig. So a crawl of some sort is great on the back of a Carolina rig. It's kind of, you know, I didn't start throwing a crawl on a Carolina rig until several years ago. It was always, you know, the more standard stuff, but it's kind of overlooked, but it definitely works. So you got to throw that in your rotation. So I just touch on gear real quick, you know, we won't go like too deep into Carolina rigging, but a longer rod is key. A 7'6".
Very.
Some guys go like 7'10", like the real Carolina rig dudes, you know, like what's his name? Lloyd Pickett. I mean, he's like the Carolina rig dude. I'm sure he's got like a 7'10" rod or something because that's his deal.
I don't know. He's so short. He might have a 6'10".
He is a short dude, man. But that long rod, Carolina rigs are weird to throw because you got this leader, you know. It's strange. The longer the leader, the more difficult it is to throw. But if you have a longer rod, it seems to help you with that cast. So, you know, something in that 7'6" range, in my opinion, is kind of where you need to start at. And as far as length of leader, the other day I had about an 18-inch leader, you know, no more than 2 foot because there was a lot of current. And honestly, the current did play, and the watercolor had a lot to do with it. I figure the dirtier the water, I think the shorter you should make your leader. You know, you don't need that thing too far away from the weight because the weight is kind of what's drawing the fish's attention. They're hearing that weight on the bottom. And as they come over, if you got like a 4-foot leader and the visibility is like a foot, they're probably not going to find that bait. So shorten your leader in dirty water. And as the water gets clear, make it a little bit longer, and pressure too. If you got a heavily pressured body of water, you might want to get that bait away from the weight, you know. And, you know, a lot of people will put, I like to put mono on there on the leader, but actually this is fluorocarbon. This is my main line. It got chewed up so bad. I just flipped it around. I was in a hurry, and I just put the same fluorocarbon that I was using as my main line. But I believe this is 20-pound fluorocarbon, but I really like a 20 main line and like a 15-ish, 14 or 15 for my tag. But that's basically the rundown on that. You know, 7-1 gear ratio reel, whatever reel you want. You know, I like to be able to take up a lot of line because a lot of times you got a really long cast out there. And that's another reason that longer rod is key, because you can really reel down on the fish and sweep and move a lot of line and, you know, get a hook in those fish. Because it's kind of a weird bite. You're not always tight with the fish, you know what I'm saying? Because there's so much play in that tag. So you really need to take up that slack. You know, if you don't move that rod far, you could maybe just barely tighten up the line. You know, you think you're setting the hook, but there's maybe the weight's right here and it's tight when it's back here, but maybe the bait is drifted closer to the weight and the fish has got it, and you set, and all you're doing is just setting the weight. You're not actually moving the hook. So that's why it's important to reel down and, you know, kind of, you need that longer rod to move some line. So I'm jabbering, man. What do you guys got on that?
Yeah, I like that. I throw mine on I've got a 7-11 rod that I use for Carolina rigging. It's one of the times I really prefer braid for a main line. I've got 40-pound braid for my main line, and then the leader, depends on the situation, but I've got a lizard tied on right now with 17-pound Trilene XT green, so monofilament. And then one of the things I was taught to Carolina rigging, it's really important in how you pull the bait. With a jig or whatever, you've got your rod tip up. Both that Carolina rig, it's kind of like dragging a big crankbait, and your rod tip is down towards the water, and then you pull. I like to pull that weight through whatever I'm fishing, as opposed to reel the weight through what I'm fishing. And so, with that longer rod, you can kind of inch that bait or the weight along, and then when you get to the back of wherever you're, and then you reel up your slack and then pull it again, and repeating that, sometimes kind of like how you work a big crankbait. And when you find whatever, and typically, you're fishing some sort of hard bottom situation, and you know how it is when the bait feels right. A lot of times I'll be dragging and all of a sudden it feels right, and I'll pull through one bump or whatever, and then I'll stop it. When that weight feels like it's in the right stuff, I'll pull into it, pull just past it, and stop it. And I'll wait, almost like you're fishing a jerk bait, and wait a second or two, and then keep going. And sometimes you'll find a cadence within that, with how they're picking up that Carolina rig. And probably a lot of that has to do with how long your leader is, and if you've got a long leader because you're fishing grass, or the short leader is probably not as important. But there seems to be a cadence that's right each day, and it can be different with how you drag that Carolina rig. And I know tungsten's all the rage, but I really prefer lead on a Carolina rig. I want my 1 ounce weight, whether it's tungsten or Carolina or lead, I want it to be as big as it can be, because I don't think it gets hung up as much.
Yeah.
And with braid, with a 3/4 or 1 ounce weight, I don't have any problem feeling anyway. It just kind of helps me get in a groove with it. Then the other side of it, the business end of it, the plastic or whatever you put on there, that's the beautiful thing about the Carolina rig, because the imagination is the limit on what you put on the trailing end of that. I've fished little tiny craws. I tell you, one that's on the other side is the big trick worm, the old Zoom big trick worm on the back of a Carolina rig, all the way down to the little centipede, or I'll tell you the other one, they're on shad good, Texas or Carolina rigging, a fluke, or that type of bait. So that's the imagination. Just, you can kind of fit whatever situation you have. Kind of like what you did down there at Kentucky Lake. You can find something that'll fit whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah. It's you can put anything on it, really. You're right. Just playing around.
Yeah.
I'm about the same as you guys. I'm throwing a 7-11 Temple Fork Outfit rod. It's actually a walleye rod. It actually has a fast tip on it. So I'm actually when one does bite it, I'm actually able to set the hook good. But one thing that I did change up recently because my eyesight is I went with the pre-made rigs. Just so much easier to tie. You know, it's just hell to get old, I guess. But the bifocals and stuff, I just refuse to wear them. But so that's been a little bit easier for me. And I may be missing after I say this from so many people catching them on them that I know, and then also my association with Hawgz. But the Berkeley Crazy Legs, actually missing a pincher, but that Crazy Leg, I caught them all summer long last year on that bait, Carolina rigging it. And we caught them, did a lot of the Wednesday night tournaments at Lake of the Ozarks, and all through from pre-spawn all the way through the summertime, we caught them on Carolina rig on that bait right there, green pumpkin at Lake of the Ozarks.
Yeah, man, that crawls. I tell you another bait that's it's a creature bait, but it gets overlooked, and it's the Missile Baits Destroyer, or the Baby Destroyer on a Carolina rig. That is a really good
one. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, you need to check these out. So this is the regular Destroyer. Okay, and it's a long bait. It's got these long tentacles on there.
Yeah.
Now, when I was fishing a regional at Chick, the guy that I was pre-fishing with, he sent me a little private message. He said, "Hey man, don't tell nobody this, but you need to get a hold of Tackle Warehouse and get you some of these." So I bought a bunch of them. I had some of them left, and one day I just put them on a Carolina rig, and it's not so it's kind of flat, you know, so it really glides. It's got a really good gliding action. And they make a Baby Destroyer, which is about half that size. And not a lot of people throw this on a Carolina rig, but it's really deadly. It's one of those deals where
you just said something.
Oh, go ahead.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to tell you.
You just said when you said we got a delay. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to tell you that there was a situation out on Cedar about 3 years ago where I was throwing a Carolina rig. I came down through there with a baby brush hog, and I just knew that fish were in this area, right? Actually, I was fishing a jig before that, couldn't get bit, so I went back through it with a baby brush hog, and I remembered that I'd thrown those Baby Destroyers in the boat in the Bruiser Flash color, and I thought, well, what the heck, I'm going to try these on there. And I went down that little stretch and caught like 3 or 4 fish just by switching that bait. So just like anything else, not only are they, sometimes they want a jig or a shaky head or a tube or a Carolina rig, they also sometimes they want a different bait on that Carolina rig. It's not just the Carolina rig that they want, it's what you're presenting to them. So that little Baby Destroyer, man, it's a cool one. It's kind of overlooked and not a lot of people fish it. So, you, Ron, sorry.
No, it's okay. We got a delay here. But one thing when you said flat sided, it reminded me on that Carolina rig, sometimes how a bait glides behind that weight. I used to Carolina rig a Guido bug all the time. And you remember the Guido bug, what was great about that bait was that nice flat bottom. And that made that bait act differently than a bait that was molded, kind of around. And that flat bottomed anything on a Carolina rig sometimes will give it some sort of action that they seem to like at a time. And
except for a girl, you don't want
flat bottom bait. There's a lot of worms that are flat bottom. Yeah.
One thing I like doing too, and this will go into play at like Lake Egypt and Kincaid, when them fish start pulling up into those shallows, actually taking like a 1/4 ounce Carolina rig with a speed crawl and fishing on top of that grass, a little bit more finesse style, and get right in the middle of those ditches, right in the gut of those draws and stuff. And man, that can be deadly.
That's a good tip, Jay. Not a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people do that for sure. River Billy says, how do you guys feel about the Zoom Old Monster or the big curly tail worms, Carolina rigged or Texas rigged this time of the year? I love the Old Monster. That's my go-to. But typically don't start fishing it until a little bit later. And I don't know why. Me and Ron have had this conversation, you know, why wouldn't a plastic worm work in the cold water period? I mean, a jig and a shaky head works. Why don't we throw a 1/4 ounce weighted, you know, old monster or something? But I usually when the water gets warmer, that's when I move up to those bigger baits. What do you guys think about that?
I will actually throw mine. I just have so much confidence because I've done it for so long.
I fall on that trap too.
I actually take a Gambler rattling weight and use like a 3/4 ounce Gambler rattling weight with like a 10-inch worm with a 7/0 hook. And, you know, fishing a lot of brush, deep brush piles, and that gambling rattling weight just gives you a little, I don't know, it's just confidence for me, but it just gives you a little bit better of a reaction bite, I think. And rather than like a Carolina rig. But that's mostly post spawn that I'm targeting those fish.
Mm-hmm. Gary says 50-pound braid mainline, 1 ounce egg singer, 2 clackers, swivel, 14-pound mono, 4-foot leader, 1/0 gamma hook, 6-inch zoom lizard. Get it done, man. He broke it down. He's got it in. Man's got his own setup there. Hunter's on here. He says, how's the bass fishing been down at Kincaid Lake? Hunter, if you go back to, I don't know, about halfway through this stream, we really talk about Kincaid, and it's fishing pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of fish shallow, but you can go back and check out the playback, and we talk quite a bit about it. Had a couple people come on here and just talk about their experiences on there, but it's definitely going on for sure. Dave says a Carolina rig, lead weight tip. Cut a piece of a coffee stir stick and insert it in the hole that your line goes through. Prevents line wear big time. I'm with you, Ron, on the lead. So we got some lead guys on here. I got a tungsten weight on there, and it's just because I don't know. I use them both, honestly. So every once in a while, I just throw a tungsten on there. You, like you said, Ron, you don't really need. You're throwing a 3/4 ounce or 1 ounce weight. You can feel the bottom pretty dang good. That's a big chunk of lead. So I don't know if I was ever going to skimp on tungsten in my arsenal, it would probably be on the Carolina rig weight. Gary says the tungsten hangs up. I guess it's because of the cylinder shape. Let's see. Zoom Magnum finesse worm. The salt crawls, you know, you were saying the ghetto bug. Dave said the salt crawls. That's what I was thinking of. A crawl that's got a flat side to it. Probably be a good Carolina rig bait. So a couple more baits, and you know, then we'll shut this sucker down. Obviously the brush hog has been around forever. That's always a good one. And then the baby brush hog, a finesse worm of some sort, you know, like a centipede. I don't even know if I have any in here, but the little French fry worm, you know, that's the first thing I ever put on a Carolina rig. Whenever I first started Carolina rigging, it was like that little bitty French fry worm, like a 4-inch French fry worm. Caught the crap out of them on that. But you know, it's just like anything else. You can try the different shapes and the different actions and see if one of them's playing better than the other one. Like Ron said, you can put a fluke on there. You got the brush hogs, you got the crawls, you know, you've got the straight tail worms. You've even got the Zoom old monster. They're all different baits, all different profiles, all different shapes, and they all have a time and a place, but it's pretty much unlimited on what you can put on a Carolina rig. It's a great bait. It's great for pressured fish. It's a co-angler's dream. I mean, I don't dislike it. My theory is I like to throw whatever the fish are biting. That's my theory. I really do. Now there's some techniques that I like better than others, but if I think I can get a bite on something, I'm going to try it. It's just the way it is. So I've come to kind of like the Carolina rig. I don't have a problem throwing it at all. You know, my problem is I got 20 techniques that I like, and you know, as a co-angler, I like to keep it to 7 rods. So I have to carry a lot of rods that I can do multiple things on. And but the Carolina rig's something I definitely keep in the boat with me when I'm fishing these BFLs and stuff. It's tried and true, especially in lakes like Kentucky Lake. I mean, everybody talks about the Carolina rig down there. If you need a bite, you can just drag that around behind the boat for 8 hours, and you're probably going to come across a fish that's going to suck it down. Just keep that sucker in your hand.
I know Reggie Crabtree from Farmington, Missouri. He won the Big Bass Bash, the springtime Big Bass Bash on a Carolina rig, probably 6 years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, not surprised. Gary says the PD rig, which is basically I think that's like a really light Carolina rig, the PD rig, or is that the Mojo type of rig? You remember when the Mojo rig kind of came out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little rubber bands.
Yeah. I bought into that. I still have a bunch of those weights. They work. They're good in grass. So
you know, one thing that kind of came and gone was that slider head. That was deadly in the springtime. You ever seen those things?
Talking about the
kind of like a flathead jig.
Yeah,
man, those things were deadly.
Was that a Bobby Garland? Who made that?
Yeah, I think it was Bobby Garland.
Yeah.
But you know, there's so many things out there similar to like the Carolina rig now. I think the Ned rig has kind of like overlaid that now a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options.
Yeah. There's too many options.
There is, but you got to stay, you know, like somebody mentioned the Cinco early. I mean, you got to stay on top of the new techniques, but also, you know, you got to sometimes fall back to the 7-inch worm.
Ron knows about that 7-inch worm. That's a killer.
Uh-oh, did I just reveal something?
So, all right, guys, we're gonna shut this down. We've been on here for 2:15. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good time. It's always good hanging out with my homies and stuff, and you guys out there in YouTube land asking all these questions and staying with us. Appreciate that. As far as next week, I'm going to be at Table Rock, so we won't be able to do the Thursday night stream, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing a Monday night or not. Might just take like a whole week off just to catch my breath and catch up on some things and spend some more time with the family and that kind of stuff. But really appreciated you guys coming on here tonight. You know, Ron and Jay, and then Jack was on here earlier. He did a great job. It was fun to hear his story about that big 10-pound bass that he caught, that was caught out of the back of his boat. That was pretty cool. And as always, all you guys out there in YouTube land, appreciate you spending time with us. And I guess that's all I got. You guys got anything else you want to say?
No, don't forget about that raffle, man. That's an awesome deal. WarriorWilliam.com.
No, enjoyed it.
Yeah, Ron. Okay. Yeah, and those raffle tickets, once again, will be for sale April 12th. And I'll put all that in the description box later on so they can go and check all that out. But okay, that's it, man. We're going to get out of here. Appreciate it. I'm going to shut this sucker down.
See you, Ron.
We're out.